And welcome. It's Skeetnet live on a new platform, and we've just managed to scrape in. We've got Michael in South Douglas. Good afternoon, Michael.
Hello, Jed. Hello, Jed. Good to be here. Hello, I'm in East Douglas, not South Douglas.
East Douglas.
Either way.
Oh, okay. And Derek, we know where you are. Deepest Lancashire.
Deepest free Lancashire, where you can meet people in your garden again.
Oh, and the kids are going to school. But I tell you what, I have got some great news for you. You are going to love this. One of our viewers has purchased an electric lawnmower on the back of your recommendation. How's that?
Good lad. That's really good. That no, it is. It's a quality piece of kit. Actually, it's can't recommend it highly enough. More than pleased with it. Oh, well, we can play golf as well, Jed, as well over here. So.
I know that got a lot of airtime, didn't it, on the television and so forth. But we can still play on our own or with someone that you love or you live with. So there are some benefits here. Now, Michael, bad news at tea time. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's first of all, I think our heart goes out to the people and the families and the loved ones and the friends and the colleagues and everyone who knew those two people who passed away just in the last 48 hours here on the Isle of Man. It is sad, and it's a constant reminder that this is it's a set that drumbeat of death has returned, and it is tragic, and it's all very sad.
And of course, we have the news this afternoon that there's been another unexplained case, which kind of poses a bit of a pickle, because that person is going to probably stand out in the community. It's unfortunate. That's the way it is, because we had our eyes on the finish line, 2 weeks' time, and is it going to be like snakes and ladders? We've fallen down the snake. What's your view on that?
Yeah, you're right. So 21 days from today being the last unexplained case, and currently unexplained, they might find some link in the near future. But that is unfortunate. But I think that what we're likely to see here is the government will make some sort of political decision. We've long thrown out this idea that science is driving this, but rather politics. And so who knows what the government could do from here. But it is unfortunate. Hopefully that this can be identified and we can retrospectively determine that this is some sort of link case. Because another 3 weeks of lockdown would be very sad for a lot of people. It'll continue to cause a lot of harm to a lot of people, especially when around 40% of the people of the Isle of Man have already been vaccinated, and the rationale for imposing these lockdowns continue to crumble day by day.
And Derek, you're in a different sort of position, aren't you? Because the virus is still active in where you are in Lancashire and England, and yet your freedoms are coming back.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, they never went away. I mean, people have been sort of pragmatically getting on with it, I think, and whether that's actually sort of compounded things and extended the length of time that this has taken to sort out remains to be seen. But one of the things that I picked up on was an article on Manx Radio there. No time to relax despite promising figures, says Hewitt. Too early to say how close Ireland is to total elimination. I thought there was a change in strategy. I thought they were moving towards mitigation. So is it back to elimination? Is that now government policy? Because if that is the case, then you guys have got a long ride ahead of you, both in terms of trying to chase the dragon and get down to 0 cases for 21 days before you can lift restrictions again. But on top of that, where does this fit in with regard to your, the travel side of things, the borders and everything? It's getting more and more isolated. And just sort of one or two things I picked up, because I did run a thread on Twitter about it. You've got individuals sort of coming back saying, well, it's a marathon, not a sprint. We'll get there and be open again before the UK, and then enjoy total on-island freedom while the rest of our community take up their offer of vaccination. I think it's going to be a very long summer for you if that's the prevailing view of the general public.
Well, I think the formula for me is get everyone vaccinated, say up to the age of 50 and over, and the vulnerable ones, and let's run it like we do in England. Let's get life back to normal, because we can't be hanging by a thread on a mystery case popping up here and there. Michael, you threw some data at me. Would you like to talk through it? Some tables that arrived in my mailbox?
Sure, that sounds interesting. So for the first time, listeners or viewers, Derek and I are now able to see the charts that are displayed on screen. This is exciting news. And by the same, when I say the charts that appear on screen, I mean the charts that are about to appear on screen.
Right, okay. Would you like this one first? It's the percentage of population.
Sure, right. Okay, so this first one here is the percentage of population to have at least one dose. And so this is basically, not quite, but it's basically the people who are protected from dying from the coronavirus. There's a bit of a lag of somewhere between 1 and 3 weeks between vaccination and protection. Experts and medics can argue over that. Won't quibble with them either way. But basically, the short version here is that just over 40% of the people in the Isle of Man have had at least one dose of the vaccine. And that compares to just over 46% in England and various numbers elsewhere. One note with this chart, though, is that the Jersey numbers are a little bit delayed. They don't release their data on a day-by-day basis, but rather they release it once every week, and it's delayed for a few days. So the Jersey data is lagged. So they will actually, in reality, have delivered more doses than that, which is good for them. But that's where we are currently, state of play, trailing behind England and Wales, primarily because our local so-called experts, they denied the global scientific advice to go ahead and focus on first doses first.
Delightful. So it's not looking too bad there. I'll pull the other one up, Michael. So this is on a spreadsheet, right? Okay. There we go.
Let's skip that one. So this is just a simple little conversion of a per capita basis. Don't know if it shows you much, but basically, the Isle of Man has a much smaller population than the other bigger jurisdictions.
Okay, but we are in reasonable shape, aren't we, for the doling out of the vaccines, I'd say.
Yeah, so we're trailing behind the UK in terms of the number of first doses delivered. And so that's the key and the most important factor, because that reduces massively the reduce of people dying from the coronavirus. Although what we are doing quite well at is the second doses. And so we've delivered more second doses than almost any other jurisdiction in the world, which is, I guess a nice little footnote there.
Mm-hmm. Derek, you've been done, haven't you? Is that right?
Yeah, I had my jab last done last Wednesday. A bit of an anticlimax, to be honest with you. Sort of did some preloading with paracetamol beforehand. Absolutely no issues at all with it. I had the Pfizer jab, and my wife had the AstraZeneca one a few weeks before me. And both of us have been absolutely fine. It's just another one of those things where you've just got to get on with it, really.
But if you were on a TripAdvisor rating here, what was the venue like?
The venue was one of our health centres. All the local GP practices are working together, and I was directed to the end of the earth, which is a place called Knot End, and a very pleasant drive in the countryside. Got there, and it was like a Swiss watch. There was a chap on the gate directing us in, told us where to park, go in a couple of jab, really efficient. Here's your stuff, have a read of that, bang, bang, bang through, jab in. And because it was the Pfizer one, I had to wait for 10 minutes. The only criticism I had, there was no tequila shots or cakes or anything like that, just to pass the time for that last 10 minutes. But it was like a Swiss watch. No fuss, no drama, using the existing infrastructure, and it was absolutely fine. My wife went to AFC Fylde, which is one of our local football clubs' stadium. Again, really well organised, no fuss, no drama, no sort of Sistine Chapel conversion or anything like that for it, and got the job done. And I think that's been the big thing over here, is they've just adapted, improvised, and overcome, rather than sort of fannying around with extra bits of MDF and skirting boards and all sorts of stuff, which at the end of this will just go in a skip. When we actually need Ronald's Way back to carry out its primary function, which is an airport, unless they've got other plans for it, of course. All the stuff that they've spent huge amounts of money on will just go in a skip, as will Chester Street.
Well, it's good to hear, but it's one thing for sure that the professionals, those that are administering the medicine, the vaccine, and enforcing the care at these places is exemplary, isn't it? You hear nothing but good things. It's the same with the tracing team, isn't it? You hear nothing but good things about the people who are on the shop floor dealing with this virus, on the cold face, as it were. There's never any criticism, is there? That we can say one thing right across the board on the island, in the UK. It's there. It's plain to see. That the real workers, the ones that are holding it together. So, Michael, did you manage to tune in to any Tynwald in the last few days at all?
Absolutely nothing at all. I've read a few reports subsequently, but I've got to say that unreservedly the best thing about losing my candidacy for Tynwald last year is not having to sit and endure through any sittings of Tynwald, because these are petty political people pontificating in different ways. I ran out of the alliteration there. Might have to work on that for next week. But again. What I did see the reports and listen to a few snippets here and there of this hearing and this inquiry into the handling of Douglas Promenade, and it just seems to be another example where people with no skin in the game are imposing a lot of costs on a lot of different people, whether it be businesses, whether it be residents, whether it be people of the Isle of Man in general, are just suffering because. What seems to be this problem here is that they've gone and started digging up the road, and then after they've dug up the road, they have realised that there's a whole lot of extra work to be done. And it's a stark reminder that those infrastructure projects where you have to change midway or halfway through are those that tend to run over budget, run over cost, and of course, none of them will be held accountable for it. None of them will receive a reprimand from their manager. None of them will, heaven forbid, lose a single penny. None of them will lose their jobs. And it just shows that there is a difference in our community between those people who are genuine experts on the front line that we were talking about literally 2 minutes ago, because they do one thing over and over again and they get very good, very clear feedback. And these sort of fake expert, these bureaucrats who have no skin in the game, receive no feedback, have no accountability, and just don't get the job done.
It's been quite an insight. Derek, I think you picked up on yesterday's committee brawl with Robert Shaw tearing a couple of victims to shreds, and rightly so, I think, by the sounds of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did actually take time out to have a listen to that, and you know what? It was exemplary politics, really. It's what should be going on all the time, and I think it just laid bare. Some people have said incompetence, but I just think it lays bare the lack of sophistication of some people that hold public office. They don't realise how important this is. They don't realise the level of responsibility, and I think Martin Perkins was left with a bit of egg on his face, to be honest with you, because for a chair not to have the breadth of knowledge that was required, that Robert Shaw had clearly done his research and was incisive in terms of his interrogation of him. It was highly embarrassing, and I think you could actually run that exercise with a number of different elements of different departments and have a very similar sort of outcome. People are ill prepared. They don't take things seriously. Do certainly not exercise power in the public interest, as we see with the shenanigans over Max Gas and the like. And it's a big wake-up call, because this is the sort of thing that I've been sort of bleating on in the sidelines for years now. There is that real lack of sophistication. There is that hubris that people think that the big I am, the brilliance, and that everything's going well, when in reality it isn't. By no means are things perfect over here, but there isn't the excuse on the Isle of Man. There's the economies of scale, the size enables you to keep a very close perspective on things, and it's got to improve for the safety and security of the island in its long term.
I think the regulations, the statute in relation to OFT and competitive practice is under the magnifying glass, and it's been seen to be totally inadequate. But I think it was mentioned yesterday about the lack of prosecutions and enforcement by the OFT, and we've got to look at who is the actual victim here. It's the consumer on the Isle of Man, and by hook or by crook, it's these organisations that are profiteering, and we know who they are. We've got a history of almost monopoly-like control in some areas on the island, and they can walk absolutely bomb-proof, and this is the problem. It's the consumer.
I think you're absolutely right, but I mean, John Pete is a good bloke, and he works very hard at what he does. However, it's a bit like when I was looking after roads policing. One of the things I used to bang on about was, will you give me a road safety strategy so I can actually do something with regard to situation? It's terms of reference, and it's there now. I mean, it's sat in a drawer, as we all know, but anybody that is able to work towards some outcomes for it. The problem is with the OFT is in the same sort of way. I don't think they've got clear terms of reference. They've got a very, very poor toolbox, and for that reason, you just sort of go along and do the best that you can within the parameters that you can operate. But it's not good enough. It's not 21st century consumer protection by any stretch of the imagination. And again, an area where the island should really be leading the world on it.
I think this must be top of the list for many manifesto pledges in September. Now, Michael, what else has been tickling your fancy when you've been out well, you've not really been out and about, have you? What's happening?
Not really, not at all. And so I guess one of the things that's been interesting for me in the last few days is, in conjunction with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, we are launching a new outreach program to schools, to businesses, and to community groups to share the story of the heritage and the sacrifices that have been made by our predecessors. And so just yesterday afternoon announced that this is now going ahead in the Isle of Man for the first time ever. Which is available to any business, any community group, any school group that wants to have someone to come along, speak to them. During the lockdown, we can do it online via Zoom or any of those video conferencing systems. And it's about a celebration, really, of the sacrifice and the heritage that we have here on the Isle of Man. There's a number of Commonwealth War Grave plots across the Isle of Man. There's literally hundreds of grave sites, and it's a wonderful way to connect from local sacrifice to the global struggle of World War I and World War II.
Oh blimey! I visit the War Memorial occasionally, really, in the course of my tourism duties when we have the visitors over, the cruise ships and whatnot, and it's stark the role of honour really on the War Memorial at St John's, and the Manx names that just proliferate. The list, in both wars, it is so humbling. It really is. It's incredible.
Absolutely. And so, in addition to those war memorials that many people will be familiar with, throughout a number of graveyards on the Isle of Man, there's a number of individual plots of individual servicemen and servicewomen who were lost in the service to our nation and to our civilization, really. And so, in addition to those monuments that people will see as they drive past from time to time, there's a number of grave sites, individual plots right across the island. Some of the most beautiful ones are actually over in Derby, where there's a number of grave sites there. And it's a way to, I think, make a connection between that global struggle, but the individual and the local losses.
I must admit, Derek, you must see that the church at Derby is something else, isn't it?
It is, and when you walk around that graveyard and you see the names on there, there's Poles, there's Canadians, and it's always very quite poignant to think, that sons have died thousands of miles from home in a worthy cause. I mean, a lot of them were training incidents that took their lives on the island. But there's a very interesting book by a chap called Steve Poole called Rough Landing or Fatal Flight, which actually documents all those losses during the Second World War, and it brings to life the story behind each of those memorials. I think it's a commendable piece of work, and it takes it's a moment to just reflect on the incredible work that Hector Duff did in terms of bringing that story alive and making sure that those sacrifices were never forgotten, and that sort of global scale of conflict never happens again. It is a story that we need to keep alive. So that's a really commendable piece of work. Excellent stuff.
So, Michael, where can we see this in action, or find it, or read about it, or is it in the pipeline? What's the story?
Sure. So it's available now, and so anyone who's interested, who member or leader of a community group or a business group or a school group, you can go to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission website. Easiest way is just type in CWGC, Commonwealth War Graves Commission, into Google. It'll come up. I've posted their press release on michaeljosem.com on my own website, simply because I wrote it and distributed it to local media outlets yesterday. And on that website, you can submit a booking and you can get a representative of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission to speak to your group. If it is you're here on the Isle of Man, chances are it'll probably be me, or alternatively one of the other volunteers from the group, and they'll speak to your group at home. And it's a really great opportunity, especially during this current lockdown thing, where various community groups might not be able to meet in person. To have a little bit of a focal point, have an opportunity to have an excuse to gather, to chat. We can do it on Zoom, we can do it on Google Meet, we can do it on Microsoft Teams, whatever channel you like, and we can tell that story in hopefully in an interesting and engaging manner for everyone to share and to keep that candle burning.
Excellent. Well, I know everyone finds that interesting, and we've remembered things so well. I mean, the British Legion is one of the biggest contributors, I think, in the UK, isn't it, proportionately? So we do very well there. So hats off to you, Michael, for that. So Derek, just tell me, what did it feel like yesterday? What was the vibe in the village?
There's definitely an uplift in morale, I'd say. We've had a glorious day over here in the rural Fylde. We actually got the garden furniture out for the first time. We had some relatives round for a cup of tea in the garden, which was great. There's ways to go. I still haven't seen my daughter down in London because of the travel restrictions. Goodness knows when we'll get to see Ryan out there in the Far East. So there's still a long way to go, and there's still a lot of pain to be had. But I think the thing is, Boris is being very cautious in terms of not tripping over the dates and not bringing them forward. So
he's not been that cautious.
Well, maybe in other areas he might have been a little bit more discreet, shall we say? But in terms of the approach to this, April 16th is the next big date. Then May the 17th, when we can actually hopefully get inside the pub down the road and have a pint of weights or bodies.
I'm going to ask you something now. I'm going to ask you something. Your local elections are coming up, aren't they? Are you on the register to vote, or will you miss out?
No, it was one of the very first things that we did, just to make sure that we were registered to vote. And it is important, those local elections. And it's interesting, because over here we have a parish council. We have a precept which is levied every year with regard to it. But you notice more than anything else here, Jackie, my wife, was out this morning for 3 hours in the local orchard, in the community orchard, pruning trees with another group. We have beautiful flower beds all around the streets, which are tended by the locals. There's a real massive sense of civic pride. All those things that tend to get turned over to the local commissioners who have to employ somebody to do it, they do themselves here. And it's a tremendous community spirit, and also keeps the precept down. The precept has actually lowered over the last few years, although my swinging council tax bill of £2,800 was paid yesterday. Most of that goes to the county council.
that's different.
I've got water to pay on top of that. I am paying over £1,000 a year more than I was for a similar property on the Isle of Man. And this is one of the things, people do forget, and I just want to impress on people again. People say in the UK, the tax and this, that, and the other. It's a very fine line. There are things which are, massively more expensive over here. I've got my income tax return to do at the end of this month and stuff like that. There's some big hits, big wedges that are taken off you well before. So on the Isle of Man, if you're, looking at thinking, oh, hang on, I'm going to be better off in the UK, do the maths first. We came here because we could afford to do it, and we were quite lucky in that respect. But do the maths first. Make absolutely sure that it's the right thing for your family.
But that's not going to matter, is it? Because we've got a load of high net worths coming. That's the latest news, isn't it? There's been some advertising, I think, in the Telegraph. Isn't that right? Did that pop up on the radar today?
There was an advert in the Telegraph with I think it was Tim Groves, wasn't it, from Black Grace Cowley, was asked to do a little piece. They're always trying to attract high net worths, and I have no issue with that. I think many of them bring a lot of good. A lot of them try very hard to add value to the community. A lot of them get the door slapped in the face, so they just end up enjoying the tax take and getting on with their own little business. I think one of the things is looking how many we've lost over the years. We were up in the early hundreds a while back. What is it now in terms of the
68, I think. But I must bring Michael in here. What's your view on the value of high net worths to the Isle of Man economy?
Well, I think that people make various contributions. We've seen that wonderfully in the case of the coronavirus pandemic, where we saw some high net worth individuals, for lack of a better phrase, simply doubled the number of ventilators that were available here on the Isle of Man. They reached in their pocket and they chucked a chunk of money on the table to ensure that we had the medical equipment that we needed. More recently, I saw reported in the local media hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of extra funding going to the hospice by people who were generously contributing. And I think this sort of ties in with what Derek was saying about community pride and community care of the local flower beds and so on, is that there is a scope between those things that are compulsory and mandatory through the tax system and those things that are individual. And that is, there is community value in doing things voluntarily and contributing. No one made a law that made the Scheinbergs buy an extra half dozen ventilators for the Isle of Man. But they did that because they're committed and want to contribute to the community. No one made a law that forces the people to care about the flower beds in Derek's neck of the woods. But they did it because they care about and they wanted to contribute to the community. No one made a law that said the Kell Properties needed to donate £100,000 to the hospice. But they chose to do that because they care about and wanted to contribute to the economy. And so I think that we need to get outside this mindset of you must be mandated by law or, it's be a selfish free-for-all. But rather there's a middle ground. And that is people with a love and affection for the Isle of Man are able to contribute in a multitude of different ways. And I think it's great to see.
And I think it's fair to say that people do. It would be, I don't know, if there was some mechanism that when new multi-millionaires come to the island and enjoy what we've got and pay that minimal tax, if there was some sort of hook where we could attract the best entrepreneurs to create business and employment, that's the strand I'd like to see, because at the moment we're not really seeing a great deal of growth, are we?
Well, I think with a lot of these things that we have a whole bunch of barriers and inhibitions to investment, and a whole lot of barriers and rules and regulations that make it hard. So, for example, given the current, I don't know what the right word to use here is, but somewhere between debacle and disaster of the European Union's attacks on the investment rights and the private property rights of researchers and scientists in the vaccine department, this is a great time for the people, for the business of the Isle of Man, for the government of the Isle of Man and the community of the Isle of Man to shout loud and proud into the EU. So, hey, if you want a secure place to invest, If you want a place with a reliable government, if you want a place where we don't change the laws and we don't try and impose these sort of silly restrictions that kill people on businesses and on people, come to the Isle of Man, because the opportunity to invest and to grow and prosper in the Isle of Man never been better than it is today.
Derek, come in, please.
I think there is a huge opportunity, but there's got to be a willingness from central government. I remember a few years ago when I was looking at developing a business, and one of the things you can't access on the island is the Enterprise Investment Scheme and the SEIS, which is the slightly higher risk thing, where you get up to 30% tax relief, which is obviously a huge investment for incentive for a UK investor. They tried to do a scheme here, which was just nowhere near that. And if you were a tax capper, you couldn't benefit from any further tax take. My point was, oh, hang on, what does it matter if these people pay no tax if they're actually creating jobs, wealth, and investment on the island? Because that is where you'll get the growth, rather than actually being precious about somebody paying no tax, as they might do in Monaco or somewhere like that. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as they're actually putting something in which other people get out of it and government gets something out of it. So I think there's a naivety within government with regard to the benefits that could be leveraged. And don't forget, a lot of these individuals arrive through the personal recommendation of their high net worth network. It's nothing that government's doing. It's somebody actually saying, you want to come and have a look at where I live and look at the fact that my tax cap actually pays my aviation or something like that. But we're not actually seeing a lot of growth in that sort of area. So I'm suspecting that those positive conversations at the moment, for whatever reason, aren't happening in the high net worth networks. So there's a long way to go. And it needs to happen, because it's just another thread of getting the right people on the island who are going to contribute in some way or other and feel valued, and they can take the benefits that they get in terms of being able to keep more of the wealth. But on the other hand, the island's getting more of a benefit in terms of actually them creating wealth as well.
Indeed. And it's just locating those individuals and hooking them and getting them here, isn't it? It's we do get the benefits. We talk about the trickle down side of things, but we need something more tangible and to have some industry and business.
You need the communication links as well. They need to be able to get on and off the island rapidly, efficiently, without sanction, and keep their networks going in the UK. I mean, I noticed the Peel Holdings helicopter was knocking around here the other day. I don't know whether or not Mr. Whittaker's based himself over here for the duration or whatever. And certainly Trevor Hemmings used to be in and out every single day to his empire in Chorley, but taking the benefits of the island life as well, and creating employment in the north on his estate and so on. So there's got to be that side of things as well, and certainly in terms of the clunkiness at the moment that exists with those communications links. I know a lot of people, and I've actually asked this question to some of my high net worth friends in the UK. Well, why aren't you on the Isle of Man saving a load of money? He says, because it's difficult to get on and off. It's windy, it's wet. If I want to just go down to the south of France, it's difficult to do. I'll take the 40% tax hit, thanks, and enjoy the benefits of a more networked country like England is. It seems counterintuitive, but that's the way that they're thinking.
Michael, anything to wrap this one up with?
Not really. I think that's a reasonable summary of the situation. But I just also want to make the point that people, to harp on it again, I guess, is that people contribute to our community in many ways outside the compulsory tax system. And I would never want to get down that path of saying that the only value that people contribute to a community is what they pay in tax, because there are a lot of people who, might be pensioners, who might be disabled, who might be very wealthy, none of which pay very large levels of tax, but they can contribute in many different ways. Simply by the love and the affection that they give to their family and friends. That is what humanity is about. And so we need to remember that humans and the value of humans is more than just economics, but is rather about the dignity and support they give to their family, the friends, the community. Whether it be in that, whether it be the community of vocation, whether it be the community of their family, or the community of their, sporting or other service things. There's so much more.
Well, that's where the Isle of Man enjoys, rich fabric. Well, I think we'll just call it a day, boys. We're just coming up to 35 minutes. It's been an absolute pleasure again. So we'll catch up in due course, hey?
Hopefully at a recurring and regular time in the future.
Yes, that's right. Any comments in the box, please? When would you like to see us? A late night slot? I think tea time on a Tuesday is a little bit... it's pushing the envelope a bit, I think, for me, because the sun is shining and I might just nip out for a few holes. So that's golf, by the way. So we'll catch you up again. Bye-bye.